talking about men's mental health. And it's not going to be like an interview. We're kind of just going to like talk like conversation because we have talked about it multiple times. And we have like some notes, like guidelines for the conversation. But again, it's not like I'm not going to like interview people. They're not going to interview me. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So, first, I want to make it clear that me and Annika are not speaking for men at all, obviously. So, just take everything we say with like a grain of salt, okay? Okay, disclaimer. So, we're just going to start talking about how some men might feel like they're less likely to ask for help. So, I just want Akash and Kushal to start talking because obviously I can't say much about that.
Do you want to go, Akash? Or?
You can go.
Okay. I feel like guys in general are like less likely to ask for help simply because whenever they do ask for help, it's like a common like misconception that when a guy asks for help, you're just supposed to tell him stop being sad and he'll magically stop being sad. I feel like that's something that like a lot of guys think that their guy friends need. So a lot of guys can't go to their guy friends for help because they just get told, hey bro, stop being sad. And I mean, like when you're actually upset, being told to just stop being sad is the worst thing you can tell somebody. Because like, yeah, bro, I would stop being sad if I wanted to. Like, you know, if I could stop being sad, I would stop being sad.
So like
I feel
even like with your friends. So is it like a group thing or like can you talk to people like one on one? Because you mentioned this to me like some time ago and I know
yeah,
every
I feel
time.
like
No, go ahead.
oh, I feel like just in general, like a lot of guys, they go in with the conception that like they can ask, like they can talk to all their guy friends about like issues and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but then they start realizing that like, oh, like guy friends aren't really gonna say anything. Like they're just gonna tell you to stop being sad. So then they start like talking to other people that aren't like just in their like immediate friend group and stuff. And eventually, like I feel like over time, the idea like if you the idea of asking people for help for guys at least like starts like becoming less and less like lucrative. Like people just don't like it because also they start being looked at as like weak and like soft. Like I know for me, even for me, sometimes if I'm like just like in a really bad mood, and this is a really horrible thing of me to do, but if somebody's like coming to me and they're like perpetually upset, it's like a week of them always coming up to me and be like, "Bro, I'm super sad." Sometimes I'm just like, "Bro, stop being so soft." Like in my mind,
Or
and I
like
feel like
you want
It's like
what
infinite
you
line.
can give to them. Like
yeah, like I want to help them, but at times I also feel like it's
you
just
want to get the
ingrained.
same help. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
and it's not even just that. It's sort of like a lot of dudes think, "Hey, bro, I have my own issues and I deal with it." So like, and I'm doing fine. So if you need help all the time, then there's something wrong with you. And I feel like that's not like a proper mindset to have
Yeah.
because then it discourages anyone from getting help ever, and then it just creates a huger problem.
And I
So
think
yeah.
Well,
that
that does
a
make
lot of
sense.
people kind of like belittle like men's problems. Like if they come up to you with a problem, that you guys you're like, it's not that big of a deal. Like you're making it to seem like a bigger deal than it is.
Right.
It actually is a big deal to them, and then
Yeah.
like people should actually worry about it. But like since it's coming from a man, they take it less seriously, which makes it
Mm.
further makes it so they don't want to ask for help.
So like, okay, when a lot of guys I've talked to talk about how like because of that they've like built up like a wall or like if they've just gotten accustomed to not talking about their emotions. So if someone is trying to get you guys to like open up, like it's just like harder, right? Because you feel like you've gotten just used to just not discussing it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot like now even if somebody like even if you want to talk about it, you don't even know how to. Like
Because you're
there's
not
not
used
even a
to it.
thought of like, oh, how do I even
Yeah.
like express this? Because you just don't do it for so long that eventually like if something's wrong, you just learn to like not ask people for help. You learn to just like deal with it. Which I mean like in itself sometimes does help because sometimes it does prevent you from like, you know, like exaggerating a situation and helping you get over something a lot quicker. But most of the time, it just leads to you getting just more sad and not like it just leads to a worse situation.
Yeah.
So like, do you think you guys have like in? Sorry, I keep asking questions. Like, you've like internalized this like mindset that like nobody wants to help me because they're not going to take me seriously. Like, do you think you've just adopted that kind of mindset?
Kind of, but also like also adopted the kind of mindset that like you shouldn't feel like so strongly and you shouldn't have like such strong emotions towards certain things. So it's
Yeah.
like both ways where you shouldn't ask for help, but also you shouldn't be feeling this way in the first place.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
wait,
like
that's really important.
yeah, that's like the mindset that I'm even gonna admit that I have 90% of the time. Where like if somebody's upset about like small things, in my mind, the first thing I used to not be like this, but over time I feel like I've just gained this idea where it's like, what's the point? Like, why are you even sad in the first place? And then like I feel like a lot of dudes tend to like attack other dudes and be like, oh, like yeah, they're sad and they're asking me for help, but the fact that they're sad in the first place shows that they're like weak and soft, and I don't want to be friends with them because they're just sad in the first. When it's not really like, it's not really how
It's
that
not a
works.
strength to talk about stuff. It's just
Yeah,
like it's in middle school. Everyone would be like, "Oh, like man up, like be a man." Like, did you ever hear that like growing up a lot?
I still hear that. Like you're like I feel like in general, dudes will always hear that for as long as they live. I feel like it's like sadly something that like you just have to deal with. Like it's not something that you can try to avoid because
Mhm.
regardless of whatever, like even the most mundane things, people are gonna be like, "Bro, man up." There's even a Disney song called "Make a Man Out of You." Like it's
So
talking
it's like
about how
That's true.
like it's talking about how like you need to be more manly, and the fact
Yeah.
that they're like scared of dying is not manly.
so it's not
Like,
only like the wrong definition people are attributing to like being a man. It's like everyone's just giving the wrong message. Like when people say man, like they don't. That's when I feel like people think that showing emotions makes you less of a man because people think it's like a sign of weakness, but it's really not. So like you're saying with Disney and like other stuff, like media is like a
yeah,
big problem.
And do you feel like if like we teach like younger kids right now that that's okay, that that's kind of like the method that society will change that? Like if parents were different and if like media and things like that.
I don't think it's like parents' fault, but like if we do that, then it'll definitely like spread throughout like the generation. I feel like it's like more of like our peers and our parents, and then more of like media, like Sammy was saying, and like what we see like on Instagram and stuff, and like all the messages we receive. I think it's more of that. But I think if definitely like parents educate their kids that like men can have emotions, then that'll definitely like create a change.
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like also like in terms of like generational wise, like I feel like the one thing that makes it so stuck is the fact that not just parents but just like older generations, if anybody shows anything that makes them not look like a man and they're in the newer generation, they always talk about, oh, back in the olden days, and they talk about like how
Mhm.
good it was and how like they didn't have these issues, when in reality everyone had the same issues back then. It's just they weren't allowed to talk about it back then, and
Yeah.
now they are.
Yeah.
So like, but I feel like because everyone talks about like, oh, the good old days when like these weren't issues and all that stuff, right? I feel
Mhm.
like because people say that, a lot of dudes, even myself included, tend to start being like, okay, maybe I'm just overreacting because they weren't like this before, and then you start like shifting towards the toxic mindset of like, oh, let's go back to the good old days, and if you show any emotion and you're like this new age person, then you're just weaker.
They've just been taught that men are not allowed to show emotions and like they're like the dominant person, and I think that image just has negative connotations because people think to be a strong person you can't talk about your emotions.
Like statistics do show that women are more likely to have mental health conditions and things like that. So do you feel like that's because just men don't go to ask for help? So statistics will show that since women are more frequently going, that their rates are higher.
I think
Well,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
choose. But I feel like in general, if you come home sad or if you come home in a mood that they don't like that isn't happy and super elated and all that, they start like making up conclusions as to why you're sad, and they start being like, oh, like he's probably on something or he's probably doing
Yeah.
something. Like they probably they give like the worst like reasoning as to why you're upset, when in reality it's like, no, I'm just upset or stressed because of this situation, not because I'm like being a bad child. But they start
Yeah.
associating your sadness with like doing bad things and being a bad kid, that
Mhm.
eventually like they start like not even crediting your sadness because they're like, oh, he's probably just like doing bad things.
Just too many guys I know have just been taught that, oh, when I in terms of my mental health, I should be alone. I shouldn't. And maybe some of my guy friends told me that they feel like they're a burden or like they don't want to talk to their guy friends about it.